How do you actually stay calm when your child is rioting in a supermarket, or your toddler has been crying all night and won't sleep, or you're trying to get out the door and your kid won't get in the car, or your teenager keeps speaking back to you? I imagine you're already aware of the general principle that when your child is angry or having a meltdown or a tantrum, it really helps if you as the parent are able to stay calm and self-regulated, to be your child's rock. But if you have actual children rather than fake Pinterest children, you might also be aware that staying calm when your children are dysregulated is much easier said than done. Like, wow. I think we sometimes don't acknowledge how incredibly challenging this actually is, especially if you're dealing with any other challenges in your life. But what I notice in the parents I work with is that the more pressure we put on ourselves to stay calm and rock-like, the more racked with guilt we find ourselves when we lose it anyway. And we will sometimes lose it because we're all human here. So rather than putting more pressure on you that you have to be a calm rock in your child's life at all times, in this video I'm going to give you all the tools you need for a much more achievable goal. I'm going to show you how to create a solid, stable rock for yourself that you can swim back to through the turbulent waters whenever you're struggling. The first step to learning how to self-regulate is understanding why it can be so hard to stay calm when our children are losing it. Just telling yourself to stay calm is the equivalent of the passengers on board the Titanic telling the boat not to sink. In that moment, they're not really the ones who are able to make that decision. I really enjoyed Daniel Siegel's hand model of the brain, where your palm represents your reptilian brain, your brainstem, and your thumb, which goes over the top, represents your limbic system with your amygdala at the end. These older parts of your brain work together to regulate your emotions and your fight, flight, freeze responses. Your fingers, which wrap over the top of this, represent the neocortex, the thinking part of our brain, the most recent part of our nervous system, with the prefrontal cortex right here at the front, behind your forehead. The frontal cortex usually does a pretty good job of keeping our subcortical emotional centers in check, helping us with impulse control and making good, sound moral decisions, empathy, and so on. But when we're triggered, exhausted, or really overwhelmed, the connections between these regions can break down. This is what Daniel Siegel calls flipping our lids. Without our prefrontal cortex to lead, our limbic system is left alone to run the show, and this is not a great thing because the prefrontal cortex is what allows us to think clearly and to make rational, moral decisions. And here is the problem. Our well-intentioned decision to stay calm with our children lives here. But when we're emotionally activated, we can't access this decision. Our subcortical regions take over. What's more helpful is to have a well-rehearsed, well-practiced, and very simple, repeatable emergency procedure to follow when the boat starts sinking. This is like making sure that there are enough lifeboats on board and practicing the emergency procedure over and over again so that everyone can walk calmly to the life raft and get off safely. By practicing, we're literally strengthening the neural pathways between these regions so that we have a chance of being able to regulate ourselves and calm ourselves when we're triggered. And in order for this to work, it's really important to have a decision about what you want to do beforehand, an emergency plan. You are not going to be able to come up with the plan when you're overwhelmed. By then, it's too late. And secondly, to practice it regularly. This is a bit annoying, but it's important, and this is the bit we so often miss. Because all of this is really easy when we're sitting here all calm and logical with our thinking brains all snugly nestled over our limbic systems. We can think, yeah, I've got this, I'm in charge. But as soon as the ship starts sinking, when your limbic system senses threat and decides to take over, it will start making decisions that you won't like. This is not your fault, this is just how brains work. If you have trauma in your past or have not had this modeled to you or have any extra challenges going on in your life right now, like a young baby or a stressful job or neurodiversity or behavioral challenges with your children, all of these factors will make this so much harder. But the amazing bit is, it is possible to rebuild these connections and strengthen those neural pathways and make it much, much easier to do this in the future. There are 5 steps that I'm going to show you to building a solid place of self-connection for yourself in a way that can really support you in challenging moments. I'm going to talk you through my own example with my child from earlier this week so you can see exactly how you can use these steps in a moment of stress and tension. But I'm also going to show you how you can practice these in your daily life so that you get better at it, so that it's easier for you in those stressful moments. So my son was very angry and upset one morning because he didn't want to get in the car when we were running late for quite an important appointment. And I was quite stressed. My heart was racing. I had a really busy day ahead, and the words that wanted to come to my mouth in that moment were quite unpleasant. It wasn't the way I wanted to show up in that moment. So these are the exact steps that I took. First, I chose a focal point. So some people like to use a necklace or an object, but I really like to use my hands or my feet because I always have them with me. And this focal point is going to be your gateway for your self-connection process. It's like the lifeboat on the Titanic. It's what's going to get you off the sinking ship safely. So what I did in that moment with my son was, as soon as I noticed I was getting upset, I sent my whole attention to my hands and my feet. I noticed the feeling of my fingers rubbing together, my fingernails on my palm, the sensation of my toes inside my shoes, and the weight of my body on my soles. And I just put my whole focus into noticing those sensations for a few moments. When you find yourself in a difficult situation with your child and you notice yourself starting to lose it, don't wait. As soon as you notice, find your focal point and put your whole attention there. So you can practice this every day just by starting to become aware of this part of your body. Just choose to send your whole awareness there for a few breaths and really notice the sensations. And what we're going to do is follow this moment of awareness with some mindfulness and relaxation processes, some self-connection, and we're going to pair that focal point with the sensation and memory of your body relaxing. And what you're doing is you're actually building the neural pathway for self-connection, for self-regulation. And at the same time, you're drawing yourself a clear map and putting a big neon sign above the exit door so that you can find it when you need it. So what I suggest is trying this today a few times and just a few times over the next couple of weeks. And what's going to start to happen is that your hands and feet and the sensation of becoming aware of them is going to become a trigger that will lead you into self-regulation. Over time, this will become a quite natural automatic process. So the second thing I did was I used my breath. The reason that mental health experts and spiritual leaders are always telling us to breathe is for a very good reason. Breathing is the fastest and most effective way to shift us out of a fight, flight, freeze response and to support us to shift into a calmer, more relaxed, safe state. The problem is we forget to do it. So this is why tagging it to our focal point can really help. As soon as you bring your attention to your hands or your feet, this can be your reminder to trigger your breathing. And if you practice this a few times over the next couple of weeks, this can really help you to pair these two things so that you can remember to do it when you need it. I notice my hands, I start to breathe. If this is new to you, I recommend you just start really simply. Don't overcomplicate this. Just taking 3 to 10 deep breaths is amazing. The important bit is to practice extending your out breath a little longer than your in breath. So that looks like this. So in that moment with my son, I had 3 kids I needed to get in the car. I had a ticking clock. I didn't have time to take a long walk or to meditate or to do journaling. But I was able to notice my hands, take a few steps in the other direction, and take 3 deep breaths. And that's what I did. The third step that you can take is to notice your senses. When you bring your awareness back to your senses, naming and tuning into what you can see, hear, smell, you're bringing your neocortex back online. It is such a simple but effective way to bring ourselves out of our raging thoughts and emotions and into the present moment, to ground ourselves. And again, it doesn't need to be complicated. You have 5 fingers and you have 5 senses, so you can just think of one thing that you can see, hear, smell, taste and touch. Just noticing what is actually going on around you is such an incredible circuit breaker that can just take you out of the looping overwhelm and bring you back into reality, into this present moment. So I was standing outside at the time, so I just looked at the sky, I smelled the cool air, I felt it on my cheeks, and this immediately shifted something in me. I was back in the world. The fourth thing you can do is to notice your feelings. to notice your body. This mindfulness and breathing and noticing your senses is a really incredible way to come back into the present. But true self-connection is when we're actually able to notice what's happening in our bodies, what emotions are playing out in us. We're not going to bypass these things. So the next step we're going to take is to turn our attention towards what we're feeling and name it. And again, naming our emotions is an incredible way of bringing our prefrontal cortex back online, because this is the part that can do the naming. As Daniel Siegel says, name it to tame it, literally passing the message from our subcortical areas where they're trapped to our higher cortical areas, which is where we're actually able to do something about it. We're able to problem solve and think what we can do to solve these difficult situations that we're in. It's like making sure that an important letter that we've written gets delivered to the right place. So what does this look like for me? Sally, are you feeling stressed right now? Yeah, I'm really worried. Are you a bit scared? Yeah, I'm a bit scared. I'm not sure how this is going to go. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a really stressful day for you and you just want to make sure that everyone gets where they need to go. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. I am talking to myself like I'm my best friend in the world. Better than that, like I'm the gentlest, most caring parent in the world. I'm taking myself and giving myself a big hug and saying, it's okay, you're okay. You're feeling some really big stuff and that makes perfect sense. Importantly, I'm not just saying the words, I'm letting myself feel my feelings, processing them. I feel the discomfort in my chest, my gut. It's uncomfortable. I feel it in order to process it. And this step can take a lot of practice for some of us. When I first started practicing this maybe a decade ago, the only feeling I could really notice was anxiety. Many of us have learned to numb ourselves, and it can be really overwhelming at first to feel our big emotions. It's like a fuse box. Our system just switches us off when there's a surge of emotion that's too great for us to process. So we need to practice this on smaller emotions and build up. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But there's one more really important step, which is to think, what do these feelings actually mean? Everything we do, everything we say, all of our actions and words come from our needs. This is a really important principle of nonviolent communication. When you're raging, what this means is that there are some really big unmet needs going on for you in this moment. We're not trained to notice this. In fact, we're often trained not to notice what we need. In order to really process big emotions in a moment, it can really help to connect it to what we're needing. Are we needing rest? Are we needing space? Are we needing some comfort? Your emotions will be firing like anything to send you this warning sign that you have really important business to attend to. And if you can train yourself to notice that, it can really help to process our emotions faster and more effectively. So what did this look like for me? Are you needing some support, some help with all this? Yes, this day is just feeling so hard. I really need some help with it. I need some support. Are you just wanting a bit of peace in this moment? Yes, I just want to have this morning run a little more smoothly, a little more peacefully. So what I'm doing here is I'm activating my frontal cortex and also my right hemisphere, which is my creative problem-solving empathic center. By naming my needs, either out loud if you can, or just in your head, what you're doing is you're really letting yourself know that you've been heard and understood. It gives your whole system some reassurance. Once you really feel into your feelings and needs, something magical happens, something shifts. You suddenly have new resources unlocked. You might be able to think of a solution that you couldn't access before, or you might feel resourced enough to approach your child in a different way. So in that moment for me, the simple shift I experienced was that I was able to go back to my son with more gentleness, which quickly helped him to find the willingness to get in the car. So that won't always happen, but what does happen reliably is that we find deeper resources. We find new creativity and connection to ourselves that allows us to move forward. What made it possible for me to do this in the moment was that I've practiced this 1,000 times. And the fun thing is, if you practice this regularly, you can not only get better at it because you've built the neural pathways, but you're actually reducing your daily overwhelm, which makes it less likely that you're going to overflow in the first place. It makes your general emotional load much, much lower. So grab your phone and we can do this right now. What you can do is set this reminder. What are you feeling and what do you need? Set this reminder to go off at least 3 times each day. And when it goes off, take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Am I worried? Am I distressed? Am I confused? Am I tired, anxious? What do I need? Do I need rest, movement, comfort? Do I need to relax? And then take one action to care for this need. Maybe grab a cup of tea or a blanket or take a quick walk. One small thing to care for your needs in this moment. Because you are important. Your feelings and your needs matter, and you can learn to notice them. And if you practice these steps for the next 2 weeks, I guarantee you will have taken a huge step towards having more resources to self-regulate when you're in a difficult situation with your children. The most important part is deep self-compassion. You are doing the hardest job in the world, and if you've listened this far, you are well on the way to making a deep change in your life. You've got this. And if you find that despite your efforts to stay calm yourself, your child is still quite dysregulated and angry a lot of the time, you might want to check out this video where I have a look at how we can translate our child's most angry messages and understand how to actually help them.